G'day guys, these are definitely not Traxxas slashes, these are toy poodles. This is Albie, this is Samantha, and they're cute. But let's get into the real aim of the video, the Traxxas slash. Now this definitely is a Traxxas slash. This is a two-wheel drive Traxxas slash, and this video is all about how to build a fully customized, basically the best slash in the world. So why a Traxxas slash and why a two-wheel drive? This is the #1 selling car in the world for probably the past 15 to 17 years for Traxxas. It is a very durable car. If you've got children and you want a car that they can abuse, this is the car. Front bumpers, rear bumpers, side bumpers. Very basic. It is two-wheel drive. There is a four-wheel drive, which is his big brother, but the two-wheel drive wins every time in durability and long-lasting runtime. Now in this video, we're going to show you the standard one, and then we're going to build the ultimate two-wheel drive one. So we're going to build the LCG slash, which is this one here, using all the Traxxas option parts. We'll be using the Magnum diff, the LCG chassis, the Traxxas big bore shocks, all the goodies. But we'll go all through that in the video. I'm going to show you from start to finish how to build the ultimate Traxxas slash. Watch on. So here it is. This is the Traxxas slash. This is the newest model of the slashes. This is the two-wheel drive, the #1 seller. This one's got the clipless body, so this is the newest generation, probably less than 6 to 8 months old, this one. Since they brought them, they used to have body clips, so we'll pop the body off. Here we go, here's our standard slash. So what makes the slash such a popular car? Well, there's pretty obvious. Front bumper bar, side bumper bars, rear bumper bars. This car is aimed at children from 5, 6 years old to 12, 13, 14, 15, and dads. The car is very, very much indestructible. There also is a four-wheel drive model of this car, but this is not that one. The bodies are the same. You can put this four-wheel drive body on the two-wheel drive and vice versa, but this isn't about that. This is the two-wheel drive model. Anyone that owns one will tell you that they're taken to skateboard parks, BMX tracks, up and down the street, and they take tons of abuse. They're rear-wheel drive only, so they're not overly heavy. Their runtime's fantastic. The weak links in standard form are definitely the brush motor. They're a good little motor till they fail, but they are a brush motor. The brushed speed controller. The standard servo, well, that's commonly upgraded to a metal gear one, and they commonly go to a lithium battery. The car itself, but, is so simplistic, and that's what makes it so popular and has made it the biggest seller in the world for the past 17 years for Traxxas. The Traxxas slash, there is no easier car to work on. It's just so basic, it is. Parts availability is the best in the world. This car here, anything's available for any part of it. In this video, we're going to build one to make it the best in the world. We've been building these for 17 years and built thousands of them. So we'll go through in the video of how to build the world's best slash if you want to go that way, or you can just get your standard one and upgrade it. But this video is about building the best one. So let's get into it. So to build the slash, we're going to show you the electronics. So we use a hobby wing. It's a 120 amp speed controller. It's classed as waterproof, and it will take a 2 to 4S LiPo. 2S, which is 7.4 volt, is all we'll ever use, and that's plenty of power. On free cell, these cars are ballistically fast. The motor, it runs a 5mm shaft. So the shaft on the motor is 5mm. The standard ones in most cars are only 3mm. So this is a very heavy duty motor, and it's also made by Hobby Wing. The pinion gear, well, that needs to be a 5mm. So in this case, we run a 25 tooth gear, so it's 48 pitch, 25 tooth, and we run that with either an 86 or an 83. The motor doesn't get hot because it's a two-wheel drive car, and the speed controller is big enough, so there's no problem. So that's the motor electronics. Now another system you can use, and we do use it, is the Traxxas Millennium brushless system. It's the VXL3S. This is the latest generation of that system. It's a great little system, and we use that a lot. But in this video, we're going to be using the Hobby Wing system, but the VXL is a very good choice if you're not using the Hobby Wing. Servo, we use the trusted Sabox 10 kilo metal geared servo. So it makes 10 kilos of torque, and it's all metal geared. So that's the servo that we use in the build. Radio gear is far better than standard. We use a Futaba 3PV. Futaba's been around for 60 years. It's a quality radio. And the #1 feature that this has is an EPA setting to turn the power down for children. Very good quality radio, and that's what we use in the build. As far as components, we use an ST&C pin kit. So the ST&C pin kit is one of the best things you can buy for any slash two-wheel drive, okay? So if you want to upgrade it, I'll show you the reason why. So if you look at the arm there, the pin that runs through the rear arm, there's the head of it there, it does not go all the way through. Now these have a common problem of winding themselves out, and that is an issue, and that's also the case out near the wheel on the rear hub. Now this one has the newer rear hubs. As of this time, in June 2026, there is no pin kit yet made that goes all the way through off a nut. ST&C will probably end up making that, and then when they do that, we'll upgrade to these hubs and we'll start using them. In the meantime, we use the standard Traxxas ones, which are giving us no problems. That kit also does the front, out of the wheel, all the way through. But there will be probably an upgraded kit for them soon. Now these are the parts you're going to need if you're going to build it yourself, if you don't already have a Slash. 3745, there's steering tie rod ends. Then you have 3644, they're the camber links. They do the front and the rear. You'll need a receiver box, that's a 5624. You will need the 6845X steering rack. You don't need that, you can use the standard one, but this is the much heavier duty one. And this one here has an inbuilt servo saver. It's the same as what appears in the 4x4 Slash, and that's what we use in all the two-wheel drive builds. Very, very strong little rack, and we'll show you how to build that in the video. Front bumper, you can't go past the Traxxas 5835. It's a very durable bumper. We've got cars coming in here 15 years old that still have them hanging on there, and they're a great bumper bar made by Traxxas. Shock absorbers, we do not use the plastic ones in the Ultimate build. We use the Traxxas big balls. The part number on them is 5862. These have seen years and years of service, these shocks. They're fantastic. They run a titanium nitrided shock shaft, aluminium body, aluminium cap, and you can get a rebuild kit if you ever want to service them. They're a great shock. They're not adjustable by threading them down. They have packers, but they do the job and they do them fine. We'll show you us building them. Gearbox wise, we do two versions. We use the standard gearbox that we build ourselves. That comes with the heavy duty hardened idler gear. So we actually build that gearbox here ourselves. So that's the standard Traxxas one. And then you also have the option of the Magnum. This is the newer gearbox. It's got a silicon filled diff center and you can tune it. This one is as heavy duty as they get. It's got an aluminium motor plate, and that's what we'll be using in this build. The part number on that one there, if you can see it, it is 9495-AX. Not a cheap gearbox. This also comes out in their VXL model, but it's a great gearbox, and that's what we'll be using in this build. Shock towers, we use the RPM front tower, part number there, and we use the RPM rear shock tower, part number's up there, that's an 80832. Sorry, the part number on the front one's 80852. We use the RPM arms, front and rear, bulletproof, 80242, 80592. And we also use the RPM rear bumper, 81002. We're going to go through all of that in the build, but they're the basic parts that you'll need to build it. And the thing that we're forgetting here is the chassis. This is the 5830. This is the LCG Slash chassis. So it lowers the center of gravity. The standard one has the high center of gravity chassis. We'll be using this in all of our builds. It's a fantastic chassis, lowers the center of gravity and makes the handle great. So there you go, that's all the parts. The other thing you're going to need is a lot of bolts. We keep these in bulk. Now the bearings in the Slash are a 5x11x4. It's the only size bearing they use in the entire car. Front hubs, rear hubs, gearbox. It's such a basic car and all the bearings are the same size. You'll need some 1985 Teflon washers. That's how you shim the car up. You'll need some 3mm nylock nuts. All of our gear is 316 stainless. That's what we use in our builds. 3x12 flat heads, 3x12 button heads, 3x16 button heads, and all the bolts here. I'll have a full list, and you can also pick up these bolt kits for a two-wheel drive Slash. We'll have them in our RC Hobbies eBay store. We send anywhere in Australia with them. So if you want to upgrade your Slash to stainless, these are the bolts, and we keep thousands of them here. So yeah, let's get into the build and we'll get into it. Rightio, so let's get started on the build. So we're going to start assembling the chassis. So that's the first thing. And the first thing we're going to put in is the battery holder. That's the rear holder. That drops in here and here. So if you have a look at that, pretty straightforward. Just drops straight in there. The bolts that we use for these are a countersunk flathead. They're a 3x12 and there's two of them. Now I use the cordless drill. I'm pretty used to doing these. Obviously I don't want to do it up too tight, so I'll just drop them in there. And you'll feel them when they take. They're getting close to tight. Okay, so that's it. I'll finish that off with a 2mm hand Allen key. The reason I use the drill is just a lot quicker, so just a little bit of a turn. With RC cars, you've got to have a feel for it. Just don't over tighten them, okay? Next one we're going to do with the side Nerf bars. So these here are button heads. That means it's a button head, 3x10. So we'll drop those in there. And we'll get our drill. If you're using a cordless drill, be ready for it. Don't do it too tight. I recommend you do it by hand if you haven't done this before. Okay, same on the other side. Okay, not too tight. And then I'll go over, just check them. And that is done. Okay, the next thing that's going to go into the vehicle is this little thing. This is our battery holder. So for me, I'm pretty used to doing this. I just whack it into the drill and I'll just do this. And I'm doing. So then I will just put a little socket on there. There we go. And see, it's straight like that. The reason for that is that when the battery holder goes in, it just lines like that and the pin will go straight through like that, okay? So the next thing we're going to put in, this is our battery foam. So we're going to run a 2S battery in this car, so it's 7.4 volt. So what I do here, it's a really good idea and mandatory to run this thing, else we'll just cut it straight down the center. Okay, now this stuff here is acetone. If you're using anything with double-sided tape in an RC car, you definitely want to use acetone. That makes the surface clean, and anything that has a double-sided sticking tape will stick properly. If you just put it over dirt or grease or oil, it's not going to stick. So we'll just peel these off. These are pretty straightforward. They just go in there like so, and give them a nice press down. The other one. There we go. So that is in properly. And when the battery goes in, it'll be completely insulated from impact, okay? We'll put the battery holder in. And we'll put the little clip in. And we'll move on to the next step. Rightio, so let's get into our front end build now. So the servo that we're going to use, that's the Gearbox SC025MG metal geared. Very reliable. Failure rates out of these, I've put hundreds of them through slashes that we've built, are virtually 1 in 500. They're one of the best servos we've ever used. So if you're keen on a good servo, that is the one to get. Rightio, there's the part number 2. If you just have a look there, that's a SC025MG plus Gearbox. Really good servo. Okay, now to put the servo in, if you have a look on the Traxxas LCG / two-wheel drive mounting plate, there's 4 holes in there, right? We're going to go off the bottom ones. Now, with some servos, you can use any servo you like. That's just what I recommend. See that it won't go to the bottom hole? Now, you do need the bottom hole for the steering arm that we're going to use. So the plastic here needs a bit of a trim. So what we're going to do there, break out our Lexan scissors. It's not too hard, so we just give it a bit of a trim. So we just trim around there and to there. Now that affects nothing. Every vehicle we've done that to has had that done, and it doesn't affect anything in the strength department. So the servo will just drop in here like so. So we can see now it clears and it can find the bottom holes. The bolts we're going to use are a 3x10 button head. We use a little washer on them too. So we'll break out the smaller drill this time, little Ryobi. We'll put that onto there and we'll use the 4 bolts onto there. On they go. Put 1 in. Get them all started before you finish it. Put 2. There we go. And 1 more. So we'll just nip them up. Remember with the cordless drills, not too hard. You want to stop before they get too tight. You get a feel for them if you do them every day. Okay, so we'll go to our 2mm Allen key and we'll just check it. That's 1, there's 2, there's 3, 4. So that's all tight now and secure, and it's got nice stainless bolts holding it together, okay? So our next part of the equation is the 6845X. This is the steering rack. So this is the heavy duty 4-wheel drive one. It's got a servo saver inbuilt. It suits the 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive slash. Get him open. Now there's quite a few parts. Don't let that scare you away. So let's just go through this. Pop that out of there. Now the arms, I'll show you which one to use when we hook up the steering. That'll be later in the video. Now if you look here, have a close look at that. See, it has a notch facing up there at a 45-degree angle. That is that one. So it pops on there like that. And it's a servo saver. So how that works is, when it hits something, it releases like that. See that? Okay. Now this is the tricky part. This could take more than one take, so we'll put that onto there. That spring there is what is the tricky part for some people. Sometimes for me, I can do 10 in a row, no problems. Now that little bush there has to drop in, but we have to compress the spring. So we'll just put this tool on here. Hopefully we'll get it the first go. We'll push it down, see it spreads open. Bit hard to see. And we drop that into there. And we've got it first go, okay? But if you don't get that, it just goes flying. And now it's a servo saver, spring loaded. So if we look at that, you can actually unload it. See that? It unloads. Rightio, so that's together now. It has another bush that goes in the bottom there. The other side of the rack is straightforward. That just drops in like so, clicks in there. Now the next part that we need are these bolts. So they're 2.5mm, which is the larger Allen key. So we'll put that into there. That drops into here. Same on the other side, so we'll get the other one. Goes into there. And drops into there. Now you just check these by hand. Don't want to over tighten them. Just want to make sure the rack's free. And just like so. So we've got a completed rack now. The only thing we need to drop in there are these bushes. And in they go, okay? And we'll now show you where these come into the equation. So 3745, they're your steering links, okay? Into there. Now here's the front end that was built. We are going to build a front end, but if you look at the orientation of the links, they're actually left-hand, right-hand thread, and the notch, you want to get that aiming the same way, that from the front of the car to the steering links, camber links to the back. That way when you adjust it, you're all adjusting it the same direction, okay? So we'll put them on. Now here is the catch with them. We want the notch facing, that way. See, it matches the front end. But if you look at this link here, have a close look at that. See, it's got the larger flange on there. So in the steering kit that you get the two smaller flange ones, which don't have the flange. And there's a reason for that. They've got to pop into here, and you can't have the large flange, it won't fit. So they're the ones you want. So that's simply a matter. You can use pliers. These are proper popping pliers, so that pops out of there. Put that over there. And you pop this one in. Rightio, so that goes in there. And then that link then will pop into there perfectly. This is where we use our 3x15 stainless countersunk bolt. See, it's got the countersunk receive there. So we'll put that into there. This is 2mm, so we'll have to drop the size down. Just tighten it up. Rightio. So that steering arm is correct on that side. Now we have to keep the orientation facing the same way. So that one will pop out of there. And we'll pop that one into there. Okay. Same thing again, we use the other 3x15 bolt on the other side. We'll check that is correct. And it is. So there's our steering rack together. We'll now put that on the chassis. Clear our bench up a bit. Before we put it on the chassis, we've got to put it onto the steering assembly. So here's where the Traxxas 1985 Teflon washers come into it. So if these, you're going to need 4 of them. 4 of them out there. They drop on, you put 1 on that side, so there's just 2 on the bottom of the rack. On they go, like so. Now the rack itself, I'm going to make sure your bushes are in there. That'll just drop over there and over there. And we'll just line that up like that. Okay, it's now on there. Now we need 2 more bushes. 1 there. Okay, they're both on there, you can see them now. Okay, now we come in with a 3x15 socket head cap screw. Now the reason it's a socket head cap screw is just have a close look at that. See the cap screw? It locates on the bottom of the chassis, and that's why you use the cap screw. So when the steering assembly goes in, that's what locates it, okay? So we need now a 2.5. It's got a washer on there. That's a 3x8 washer. And you just want to make sure that you don't bump the Teflon washer off. We'll just bring it down. Okay, that's down. Bring the other one down. Okay, now what you do need to check here, you want to make sure the rack's free once you've tightened it up. So that's a little bit stiff, and the movement here, there's no movement there, there's no movement there. So that means I'm going to back them off very slightly, say 1/4 of a turn, and that's it. It's nice and free now. So there's no movement there, it's nice and free. That's exactly what you're looking for, a nice free rack, okay? Rightio. So now we can install this into our chassis, and it's pretty much just going to drop straight in. So there's your holes that you can put. You've got 3 bolts here, which are the 4x12 button heads. So you just need to put your servo wire through the hole, like so. Make sure your links are over there. And you'll see here, that's where they drop in at the bottom of the chassis. You can hear it just clicked in. There we go. So our next step now is our 4x12 button heads. So we're running a 4x12. Now you want 3 of those. So they're going to go into here. Go. Then we'll get our 2.5 Allen key. We'll just make sure they're snug, which they are. And lastly, if you look at the servo wire here, there's a little notch on the chassis. You can see it right there. It just give it a little pull. It just drops in like that, and that just keeps it from flying around. So that is tucked into that little groove there, and that's what that's for. So there we go. There is our rack all together. We'll move on to the rear of the car now. Rightio, so let's get into putting the diff and the rear arms in the car. I'm just going to show you here. Here's the 2 different gearboxes. This is the traditional Traxxas gearbox. This goes way back to probably 1986 with their very first model, the Traxxas Bandit, Traxxas Stampede, Traxxas Rustler. They all had this gearbox. When they brought the Slash out back in 2008, they just pulled the gearbox out of those vehicles and put it into the Slash. So it's a very, very proven gearbox. It runs a planetary internal diff. idler gear and input shaft. I haven't got it apart at the moment, but we build our own gearboxes here, so we use the Traxxas heavy duty idler gear, input shaft, and we set it all up. But that's a complete standard gearbox. I'll show you how the clutch goes on that, and then I'll show you a bit more about the Magnum gearbox. This is their newer gearbox. So when you go to build the standard one, you will need, very first thing, you will need the input shaft pin. There it is there. See that little pin? So that little pin just goes in there on the input shaft, okay? So that sits in there like so. Then if you have a look at the, this is basically the pressure plate, or they call it a slipper plate. That drops over there. Part number on that is 5556. So if you're building your own gearbox, you'll need that. Traxxas, so that sits on there. Then if you have a look here, that has 4 little grooves, and you can see them there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Those little grooves there will need to line up on there, like so. Right, so that's set up like so. Next thing we need to do is to actually put the gear on. Now, when we build our slashes with our 4000 kV hobby wing system, we use an 86 tooth spur gear, so 86. So we'll just put that other part of the pressure plate in there. That just sits in there. Now you're going to need 3 bolts, socket head cap screws, and they're a 3x6. So they're a 3x6. My advice is to Loctite them. I always put a little bit of Loctite on them. Just your blue standard Loctite. So we'll get a little bit of that. These here are 2.5 mil. So we'll start them with 2.5. And just a little bit of blue thread lock on there. You don't want them coming loose because they fall off and they go into your spur gear cover. And I've actually seen that happen. Like I've had cars come in where it's fall apart there, and not a good thing. So a little bit, last one there. And then bang them up. Use the big drill, nice and quick. Up they go. Okay, so that's the 86 mounted. The next thing we do is we just go around and just torque them. So we go 1, 2, 3. So they're all nice and tight now. Now in the middle of it there, that sits a 5x11x4 bearing. So we'll grab one of those. A bearing box full of bearings. So that bearing, it just basically just pushes straight in. So you'll see that, just drops straight into the thing. Now the last thing we need to do here now is to put our clutch pads on. They're the clutch pads. They're the new ones. They're the 5552X. So they just drop on there. Very tough little pads. You got to line them up. You see those little holes there? So they've got to line up on there. Pretty straightforward. You've got to make sure you press them in good, like so. And on. So there we go. So the pads are on now. So the next thing we're going to do, that's all lined up. We're going to put the clutch onto there. That'll just drop on like so. Okay. Next thing we do is we're going to put the spring on. So spring sits on there. Nut goes on there. Now to tighten it up without the axles in, you might want to get yourself 2 1.5 mil Allen keys. I've just got these, the ones that go on the cordless tool. Just drop one in there. Drop one on the other side. If you don't do that, you won't do it nut up. So keep a little bit of weight on that clutch so you don't want it falling off and the pads falling out. So the deal with these is you tighten it up. It is a slipper clutch, so basically I tied completely. All right, so it's completely locked now. Now from there, I don't undo it much. So if it was at 12 o'clock, I would just bring it back to about 10. The reason that is if you start running 3-cell battery or heaps of power through with a brushless system, it will slip. And if it does slip, it'll actually melt the whole gear out of it. I've seen them come in and completely melted out. So that's the gear put on. So it's an 86. So that's on a standard gearbox. Now when you get the Magnum gearbox, usually they have a 90. That's what comes out of the box. So we'll pull that off. We want to drop that to an 86. The clutch on the Magnum is exactly the same as the standard gearbox. There is no difference. So we'll pull that one off. Pull that out of there. So everything's the same, all the parts. Now we need to remove the 90. Bring that out of there. So that's off. Pull that out of there. You just give it a press and it'll just drop the plate straight out. So the 90's off now. Now we're going to the 86 because all of our builds run at 86. They have four different gears: 90, 86, 83, 76. So 76 is if you're looking to set a speed record, but it'll make the thing run hotter also. Okay, so my advice is 86 or an 83 is all you need to run on a slash. On 2, so that'll have plenty of power for 4,000 kV motor. So we'll get these bolts in here. Same thing again, just do them up. Tighten those up. So all we've done here is we've just gone from the 90 to the 86. And we'll bang the bearing back in. Everything's the same, there is no difference, it's just the actual gearbox itself. Just gotta line him up and she drops straight in. There we go. Same thing again, clutch is on there. It's going to drop on the same thing. Spring on. We'll do him up. Now we'll just put some Allen keys in here again. So 1.5 there. Another 1.5 there. And we'll just tighten him up. Same again, so we'll tighten it up. Okay, that's fully locked. We'll just back him up, say to 10. Okay, so that's ready to go now. So that's our 86. You often just have a look at the sideways and make sure they're not too wobbly. Sometimes you can get a real wobbly set, and usually what it causes them to go wobbly is one of the clutch pads can be thicker than the others, and it'll give a bit of a wobble that way and that way. So sometimes you may have to swap pads. We do this all the time, and we often check the pads. If it's a bit wobbly, we just change the pad. And what it is one pad being thicker than the other, they're a little bit out, but they're usually not too bad. So there we go. So that's done up there now. So the part numbers for the spur gear were 4686, 5556, that's the aluminium pressure plate, and 5552X-AX, that is the clutch assembly, the new version from Traxxas. So these are our RPM rear arms. RPM are proven quality arms, been using them for probably 15 years. They're just a quality item for a Traxxas vehicle, virtually impossible to break. So just before we put them on, usually I use a little bit of Traxxas grease, just a little bit there, a little bit there. The reason I do that, we're about to put, this is the ST and C pin kit, so that comes with the nylock nut, just so it has a teeny little bit of lubrication on it. They don't really need it, but we just put a little bit on there. There we go, that goes straight through. And just make sure on the RPM arms, if you have a look here, if you look, there's like a little indent. That's where the axle's got to travel, okay? So that goes on there. And we'll put that little wiggle, she's through. Now get a little nylock nuts. Bit of little things. There we go. It can be very fiddly. There we go. So I'll put those on there. Now they're 2.5mm Allen keys. So I'll just do them up. Now here's something you want to keep in mind. I've tightened that up too tight. All right, so that is way too tight. So you just grab that, back it off, and you're looking for free movement. So that's still a little tight, and that's it. So it's moving nice. They pretty much don't drop under their own weight, but once you've run the car for a while, everything sort of wears in and they become nice and loose, they do, but that's fine. Tighten that one up, back it off a little bit. A little bit more. Fraction more looser. There we go, that's nice. Now if you look at the Magnum gearbox, see these 4 bolts here, you can actually remove that and you can drop the whole diff center straight out of the vehicle, and that allows you to change the silicon diff fluids if you want in the center of the diff. That's why the Magnum gearbox is great. It actually has, if you look at the picture there, it has bevel gears and you can change the silicon fluid in it. The other thing it has is a pressed on input shaft, pretty much as strong as you can get. This gearbox will take a ton of abuse if you want to be nasty to it. It's got the heavy duty idler gear, heavy duty center case and input shaft. It's the best you can get, plus it has the aluminium motor plate, and that's why if you buy a VXL slash, it'll have that gearbox in the standard. So the VXL two-wheel drive comes with that gearbox standard, but it will be the dearer vehicle to buy. Okay, rightio, so let's look at putting this in now. Before we do that, 3752, these are your rear hub carriers. So once again, we've got the STNC pin kit. We just put a little bit of Traxxas grease there, a little bit there. That'll just go onto the pin and lube it up. Put that into that one. That's straight in. And same on this side. These are actually universal. You can use the left on the right, right on the left. They're very universal cars to slash. Same with the front steering hubs. You can use the left on the left and the right on the right there. Such a basic car and so easy on parts. We'll just tighten him up. Tighten him up. As I said earlier, we'll be updating to the newer hubs once a pin kit becomes available. But these are just fine in the meantime. They work fantastic. So we'll check that. That's fine. Tighten that up. Back it off a little bit. A little bit more looser. Okay, that is fine. Rightio. I'll grab a chassis over here. Got 2 on the go at the moment. So gearbox is ready to go in. So the bolts that you're going to need here, I'll just drop it in. So it's very straightforward. It just basically drops in like so. So that's in the chassis. We'll flip him upside down. So these bolts here, these are 4x12 countersunk, and you can see where they go, 4x12 countersunk. So we'll pop those in. Just start them all before we go tighten them. Last one, go in. Now the last 2, we'll use a smaller drill. If you look here, those 2 there, these 2 are the 3x12s. So we'll grab those. They're the little tackers, so 3x12s. Once again, this is all pretty much 316 stainless, the build that we put in. Okay. So we'll go around and tighten stuff up now. Just by hand, fine. Go that way. That way. That way. And that way. So they're done now. So the gearbox is in the vehicle. And next thing to put on is the rear shock tower and the rear axles and the rear camber links. So we'll do that next. Let's get those bits. Rightio, so now let's get our rear shock tower, rear camber links all into the vehicle. We're going to start with the axles. So these are the 6852X. So 1951 is the standard axles. These are actually heavier, and you'll see many people on the internet buying heavy duty steel axles and stuff for slashes. This is what I prefer. It takes plenty of abuse. They do wear eventually, but in my mind, they take more shock out of the vehicle through the gearbox by being plastic. They're very good. They'll eventually wear, but just do yourself a favour, buy a new pair and get back into it. So that's my recommendation. So before you install them, I just like to put a teeny little bit of silicone grease. Eventually they get bindy. Now if you look at them, if you look down the hole, you'll see a thick spline and a fine spline. So it's real straightforward. You just look at them. So that's the thick one there, and just straight on. And that little bit of silicone just makes them really nice. So when you put them in, you're going to need a 1.5mm Allen key. And if you look on the gearbox, real straightforward. It just lines up like so. And on she goes, straight onto the gearbox like that. Just do your screw up. I'm going to do it up too hard. And just like so. She's done. So that's that one done. When you come in to put the hubs, so that's the bearing, 5B11x4, that presses in that side. 5B11x4, that presses in on the other side. Now you'll need one of the 1985 shims, one of them, the little Teflon shim. Just put that in before the axle. That just goes in like so, and straight through the hole. Okay, so that's that side of the axle in. Same on the other side. Just a teeny bit of silicone. Look at your splines, make sure they're the right ones. There you go. 1.5mm Allen key. This one's on the spur gear side. It's much easier to do this with the shock tower off, because you can see it straight away. You can do it with the shock tower on, but it's much easier, okay? There you go. And same again here. 5B11x4 bearing there. 5B11x4 on that side. We need our 1985 shim. That's going on this side. Okay, so axles are in now. Next thing is the rear shock tower, so we'll just move that aside. So with the rear shock tower, it's the same thing as the steering. You want to keep the camber links, the orientation. So if you have a look there, there's the orientation. Remember I said they're left and right hand thread? So we're going to keep that the same. Now the shock tower faces that way. Those two nodules there, that's where the shocks are going to bolt on. So we'll just look at this closely. So this is your free 644 camber link, okay? Look closely at it. If you look here, see there's a little flat pad on there, and there's a little drop out there. So on the rear, same as on the front, you want to make sure it's that way. Now they do have a special bolt. Can't get those ones in stainless. So that is the special bolt. It's got a nice flat on it. That lines up there. It just does up. You don't need to know on the other side of it. That gets near tight. Now keep the orientation of the camber links the same. Okay, so that one will have to go that way, and the little flat will go on there. So just see what I'm saying there? The little flat mark there, that must go on that side, okay? So we'll put that one on. Okay, so they're near tight. Get our 2.5mm. Just a little bit. Remember, you don't have to force them. That's it. Rightio, so now our rear shock tower is ready to put on. So that's straightforward. Now there is difference in the lengths of the bolts here. The rear of it, when I say the rear, these bolts here are a 3x12. They're the ones that are going through here to here, and the front are a 3x16. Use a small drill there. Line them up. Good idea with these not to start them all at once. Just basically don't do them up, sorry. Just get them started. The longer ones are the 3x16s. They're going to the front, okay? The front of the shock tower. Sometimes to line them up, you just got to give it a little bit of a push and angle. There we go. It's lined up. To the back. Those two there. And you'll see it go near tight. Okay. So none of them are 100% tight. We'll just go over them, they're close, and we're done. Shock tower's on now. So the next thing we're going to do is put the rear camberlings on to the camberlink arm. So we'll just turn that around. I'll just show you why we do that. See, it has a large flange there. That large flange is what stops the bore cup pushing off. So you want the large flange out. That's a 3x16 bolt. Do that up. It does not need another on the other side. It ain't coming off. The only way it's coming off is in a big crash. It might tear it off. Okay, last thing we do is we'll get our 2mm Allen key, give it a nip, and give it a nip. Rightio. So where are we at now? We now have the shock tower on, rear camberlinks, rear axles in, and next thing will be the rear bumper bar. Once the bumper bar's on, we'll assemble shocks, and we'll do that when the front end goes on. So we'll move on now and we'll put the front end in. Rightio, so now we're going to build the front end of the Slash. Okay, so this front end, this one's already built, just showing you as an example. This is the same front end that's on a 2-wheel drive Stampede, a 2-wheel drive Rustler, and a 2-wheel drive Slash. The front end is identical in all of those 3 vehicles. So this build is the same for all 3 of those. Rightio, so let's get started. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our 3.7/3.6, so the standard front hubs, steering hubs. We'll take a 5x11x4 bearing either side, so they're real easy. Just like Lego, pop them in. Same with this one. Bearing in. Bearing in. Now, 3.6/3.7. These are the front stub axles, okay? Now you'll need one of the 1985 shims. There it is there. You'll put the shim over there. That goes on that side of the axle. And that goes into there, okay? Now, some people will put a shim on the other side, but I find when you do the front wheel up, they become a bit too bindy. So I just like to put one shim on that side. Then you have your little pin that goes through there. And you put that onto there. So just the one shim on the opposite side of the axle, and those will just click on. If you just watch there. Okay. And when you do the front wheel up, if you've got the second shim, I find it just, the wheel doesn't spin as nice, so I just put the one shim on. So there you go. We'll put the other one on. Same thing again. Shim on. That on. Pin through. Just on there like so. Okay, so that's those together. Get those parts out of there. So our next thing is the front bulkhead. Okay, that's your standard Traxxas bulkhead. That's a 2530A that's been around for 30 plus years. We're going to use the RPM front shock tower. Now, pretty straightforward. That just lines up like so. If you want to line it up, sometimes people struggle to get the bolts through. A quick way of doing that is just to get yourself a 2mm Allen key. Basically push it through. That'll line it up. Okay. And then get your other bolt, which is a 3x16 button head, in our case stainless. We'll put that onto there. Rightio, so we'll check they're tight. And they are done. Right, so our next part of the equation to build this front end is that we need our RPM front arms, okay? So same thing again, we'll break out the silicone grease, the Traxxas grease. Just a little bit there, a little bit there, and that'll find its way through for the pin. So we're going to use the STNC pin. Now, the Traxxas tie bar that links these together is a 2532, okay? That's a fine tie bar. We actually get our own carbon fibre tie bars made, so just a little fancy, strong tie bar. They go on the front. So we have them in RC Hobbies Gold Coast. So we go in through there, and we'll get that pin through the carbon tie bar. And we'll push that through there. So through she goes. Same on the other side. A bit of a push and she'll be through. Rightio, so now we're going to put our nuts on the back. So we'll get our little spanner now. There's not much to do up on these, so we'll grab a larger Allen key. 2.5 they are on the ST pin, and we'll do it up. Once again, we'll do it up. We don't want to over tighten it. Get it tight. Let's have a look there. It's too tight, so the arm's not falling. So we'll just back that off a little bit. And there we go. Just a teeny bit looser. And that's quite good. Same on that side. Okay, so that's fine. Alrighty, so our next thing to go on will be our caster blocks. Now these are left and right. So with your caster blocks, you've got a 3, 6, 3, 2 of the part numbers. Obviously you've got a right side and you've got a left side. And you can see that by in here. So the left has the angle on that one and the right on that one, okay? So that's the way they go. So we'll put that into there, all right? Now ST and C make these teeny little pins. These are the smaller. They're a 2.5 shaft. That's what goes out on the front of the front arms. They're the only size that's unique. So we'll grab a little bit of grease, just a teeny bit there. Put that into there. In she goes. They're the smallest nut they make. They're a 2.5 mil. Put that onto there and start doing it up. Now that's a 2 mil Allen key, this one here. So we'll grab a 2 mil. Traxxas little cross-room shot. This is a real handy little thing. I'll do that up. You can do this up all the way because the bolt actually has a stopper on the end of it. So she's all done up. We'll get the left side on. Go through she goes. And we're there. So our next thing is going to be the camber links. Now they are the same part number as the rear, 3644. And once again, same thing. You want to make sure that the flat of that and the short of that, the flat side will go in towards the shock tower. So orientation will be this way, which means that the notch will be on this side. So everything is the same. Bolt through. You have to use Traxxas bolts on these ones. 2.5 mil Allen key. Okay, tighten that up a little bit there. And we'll go to this side. Keep the orientation the same, so we want the notches that way. And the flat of it resting against the shock tower like so. And we'll do that up there. Rightio. Everything's looking all right here now. Our next thing is going to be to put the camber links onto there. Now on this case, we actually use a 3x20 bolt, and that'll run all the way through with a nylock nut. Rightio, so the 3x20 bolt's going to go through the caster block. And this one here, we are going to put a nut on. So we'll be putting a 3 mil nylock nut on there. Once again, you need to make sure that the flange is on the right side. So the next thing on there is 2 3 mil nylock nuts. They have that factory from Traxxas, so we just do the same. The rear hub carriers, like I said, we don't be too concerned, but we just do it on the front. You can probably never put a nut on there, it'll never come loose, but we'll just do it. Rightio, so we do up those caster blocks. Everything's tight. There we go, it's good. Okay, it's just on plastic, so you clearly don't want to do them up too tight. There we go, so the front end's nearly complete now. So the next thing we're going to do is put our steering blocks in. Now, for the kingpins, we use the Hot Racing. There's a part number there. You can get them from A-Main Hobbies if you're in America. Hot Racing make that pin kit there. And either knuckle will go on either side, so they're very universal. They're a hardened pin, these. So we'll just put that in there. That one is 2 mil again, the Allen key for that. Pretty straightforward, just line him up, do him up. Very, very simplistic front end, but it works fantastic. Takes tons of abuse, been around forever, and it's just such a simple setup. Line that one up, and she's in. Rightio. Okay, there's our front end complete. It's all nice and free. It's got RPM towels, which are just bomb-proof, flexible, and take abuse. The standard 253OA bulkhead is more than adequate. It's got the ST and pin kits, enough comes loose. Running the standard front knuckles, I've found over the years that if the car has a violent crash, something will sever off and break, and it's usually these. They're very cheap to replace, and they're basically a fail-safe. If you hit something super hard and it breaks off, it needs to break off. That's why we use those parts. So let's get the front end into the Slash now. Rightio, so we're going to put the front end into the chassis now. Now, one thing that you'll find, these bolts here, I use a 4x16, so that's 16mm under the head. The reason we use this, when Traxxas like Slashes have big crashes and stuff, the bolts normally are a 4x14, or they even use a 4x12 in some cases. The bolt doesn't go all the way to the bottom. By using the 16, it goes all the way down the bulkhead. I just find that reinforces them better. It doesn't bottom out, so it's fine to use. We've measured it and used them for years. So you put it on there, and we just go 4x16. Just run these ones home with the drill. And then we'll flip it over. Underneath, you're going to use a 4x12 countersunk stainless bolt, and they go straight into there. There we go. Let's do them up nice and snug. And we'll flip him over and do those tight. There we go. Okay, they're nice and snug. Rightio, so that's all our front end together now. Our next thing to go on are going to be the shocks. So we'll be putting the shocks on, and we'll be doing the steering link, front bumper, rear bumper. It's starting to look like a Slash now. It is coming together. One thing we've got to hook up here too is the steering links. So we'll make sure that the flange, see that, the large flange is that way. Then we're going to use a 3x16 bolt. These are your steering links. So that bolt will go in from underneath. Once it's near tight, you don't need to keep going, so we're nearly there. And we need another 3x16 for the other side. Okay, they're nipped up. Then we need two 3mm nylock nuts. A few in stock. There we go. So we'll drop that onto there. Get our nylock nut. Little Traxxas spanner does the job. Everyone will have one of them in their toolbox laying around. Now we just want to make sure that it is tight. So we just hold that there. A little bit of a snug. You don't want to pull it too hard, otherwise if you do it up too much, you're going to pull the bolt into the plastic. But it does need to be firm. There we go. Everything you do up on an RC car in plastic, you must have a feel for it. I'd see a lot of people that'll pull bolts all the way through the plastic just from overdoing them. So you've got to have a feel for the things. So we now have steering, so that's all hooked up. So we will get on to shock absorbers now. So we'll build the shockies and we'll get them on. That's our next job. Rightio, so now we're going to build the Traxxas big bore shocks. These would be the best shocks you could ever use for a Slash. 5862. There's plenty of aftermarket shocks on the market for a Slash, but these are the best shocks. They're not the cheapest shock, but they're definitely the best shocks you'll ever get for a Traxxas Slash. So we'll get them open. So here's how they come. They come in this nice little holder. Now there's no oil in the shocks. They give you a bottle of oil with the shocks when you get them. So just put that stuff aside. So let's go through it, okay? So obviously you have two different length shocks. You've got the front shocks and the rear shocks. So how I like to do them is just a little holder like so. We'll just sit them out. So there's a rear one, there's a front one, okay? Now, just on the build quality of these, they're superb shocks, like they really are. They've been around for years, but they're just such a nice shock absorber. They have a titanium nitrided shaft, aluminium body, aluminium cap. We'll pull this one apart and just show you a bit more on him. Okay, so inside the shock, you have a little rubber bladder, and obviously you have your piston in there and so forth, okay? Now they're fully serviceable shocks, so if you ever wear them out and you want to rebuild them, you can buy a rebuild kit. It's 2362. That does 2 shocks. It comes with all the seals and bladders if you want to rebuild them. But if you look after them and give them a good service and clean them, they last for years, okay? So to build the shocks, generally what I'll do is I'll just put it together like so. You can bleed it without the spring on, but there's no need because they're not that hard a shock. So let's just go through. Let's pop all the caps off. Make sure the bladder stays in there. Okay. There's a bottle of oil open. So simply to build the shocks, you have to fill them with silicone oil. So Traxxas make a 30 weight silicone shock oil. It's perfect for the piston size that's in there. It's all you need. So pretty much just get her in there. Fill them with oil. We'll fill that pretty much to the top. We'll do that with each one of them. Need to keep an eye, you don't want to overflow them, so just make sure you get them up to the top. Okay, all 4 of them are now full of oil. So a little bit hard to see, but you can see there's oil in there. So literally what it's a matter of, you don't want to bring the piston, which is a round diaphragm, little round disc with a couple of holes in it. And if you bring it up slowly, so the spring is on this, so we'll bring it up. You do not want to bring the piston past the top of the oil, because if you do that, you're introducing air. The idea of doing this is to go up and down a few times, is to basically bleed them. You could get more scientific about this and do more fancy stuff, but all you're doing is bleeding a shock, okay? Once the air's out, the air's out. Bring them up. You can actually see there, if you look closely, you can see like little bubbles forming. That is the air in the shock, okay? So there's air trapped underneath the piston, basically. And by doing this a few times, you can just sit it down on the table. It's a real easy way of doing it. And if you move it around a few times, you'll see the bubbles forming, just like so. It doesn't take long to do this. Do another one. There's a big gulp of air. All right, so we'll just let it sit a sec. Now we'll go back to the first one. And you can see the oil's getting super clear already. So if you look in there, don't want to tip it over, but it's getting nice and clear. That's pretty much about it. Same on this one. Now there's pretty much no air in them already. Rightio. So we're going to go back to the first one now. And what we'll do here, we're going to add a tad more oil, just a tad more. So with the oil, you don't want it overflowing. You basically just bring it up just near the top there. Just remember that when the bladder goes on, you tighten the cap, the bladder will take some of the room up. So if you've got too much oil, you won't be able to compress the shock. So it's pretty much just a matter of lining them up. Now it's only a rubber seal. If you over tighten it and you get a spanner and keep tightening it, you will cut the rubber seal and the shock will leak immediately. So literally all I do is get it near tight and give it a bit of a twist. Now that seats the rubber in there. Yes, you can do it tighter, but you will cut the bladder, guaranteed. I've had people bring these in saying they're leaking, and you pull the cap off and the bladder's leaking. They don't come loose. Give it a little twist. So you can see the oil level there, it's not too full. Just remember that the bladder will push down into that oil, so you do not want it over full. Same thing again, hold it down. Give it a twist. On there, pretty much close on the oil level. Rightio, and we'll give that a nice twist. And that is it. So that is a fully built shock. They feel buttery smooth. Beautiful little shocks. Now I'll show you a couple other things that are important when you set them up. Now when you get the shocks, you'll find a box that comes in the shock box like this. It's got all these little spaces and so forth in them. Now there's an important part that you must use, and you must keep that for each slash. This little part here, that little bush, it's very important for the top of the shocks, okay? What it does, that little part there will go through the shock, and basically the bolt will run through it. If you run a metal bolt through there, it's going to run on aluminium. So you must run those spaces on the shock. So very important to run those, okay? So we'll just put all those on. We'll just pop in there like so. So don't throw them away. They're very important. And the last one, on like so. Now with these spaces here on the rear of a two-wheel drive slash, that medium one there, I like to use that one and the large one. They already come with the large one on them, so they only need to be on the rear. So basically the preload on these on the rear, you can just basically Put the two like that, and that will be just fine. That's all you need, and that'll hold the car up, okay? Now, if you've had these on your car for quite a while and you find the back of your slashes sagging, here's what you can literally do, okay? So here's a little tip that we actually do we had lots of hire cars here for our off-road track over the years. Whatever the length of the spring is, you can just give it a bit of a stretch and you bring it out. And if you measure it for argument's sake and the spring measures, so we'll measure the spring, so this is a factory one. So if they're 68 mil, if you stretch them out to say 80 mil, that will hold the back of the car up, and over time they will sag. So if you give them a little stretch, just keep pulling them gently until they get to 80 mil, that'll be fine, and that'll lift the back of the slash up, okay? So no more than that, otherwise you damage the spring, but just keep pulling at them gently and they'll stretch out, and that will actually put preload and load them back up. You don't need to buy new springs. We did that for years of hire cars and it always worked. Okay, when you put the spring back on, real simple, just straight on there. Keep in mind this little spacer here. It's not a spacer. What it does, it sits inside the spring to locate it on the shock body. Make sure that's on there. That's on there. It just pops on like so. And we'll put our second spacer on there. So as same as that one, pop another one on there. And those shocks are ready to go straight on the car. And that's our next step, putting the shocks on the car. Rightio, it's time to mount the shocks onto the slash. So we'll get our front shocks. The bolts that hold the shocks on the front are a 3x35. I run them all the way through the shock tower, and we're going to put a nut on the back so nothing comes loose on that department. So we'll go straight through there. Pretty much we'll line it up. 2.5mm drill. Long way to go through. Just drive that through there. That's in. Grab the other one. Okay, they're through the front. Now on the rear, we're going to run a 3x25 socket head cap screw. That's what's going through the rear. They're stainless as well. As I said, all the bolts on these builds that we do custom are all stainless. Just run them straight through. Just remember our little plastic bush, that's already in the shocks. And the reason, obviously, that bush, as I said earlier, is that the bolt that goes through, if you didn't have that bush in there, that would wear on the aluminium. So you must run that little bush. Okay, now they're through. Our next step here is we're going to grab a 3x8 washer. That little washer goes onto there. Grab a nylock nut here. That'll go onto there. Grab a little Traxxas spanner. Everyone will have one of these laying around. Pretty common spanner in RC. And we just tighten that up. It just finishes off really neat. So there we go. That's done. Doesn't take too long. We'll just do that up. Now the trick with the front is we're still going to put the bottom arm shock mounts in, bolts, but we'll do that in a sec. Now with the front, there's a bit of a trick to this. On this one here, we're actually running the new Traxxas body mounts. They're a part number 6940. They come in a pack like so. So they're 6940. These only suit the new clipless bodies, and Traxxas is pretty much gone that way. You can still get other bodies. So with this one here on the RPM shock tower, so I am running the RPM front shock tower, you will need to do a little modification. You'll just need to take a little bit out of the Traxxas body mount at the front and a little bit of clearance, a little bit of dremeling or fine filing to make it fit. If you use the original Traxxas front shock tower, you will have no problems. It's a direct fit. But running the stiffer RPM tower, RPM haven't made their adjustable clearance here yet. They would need to do that if they want to work with the 6940. Other than that, I just gave it a little bit of clearance and it fits straight on. So we'll put that onto there. And we'll just line him up. And on she goes. Same thing again. We'll need some little washers on there. So they'll pop over there. Washers over there. And we'll put the nuts on. And we'll just do that up. So on the other side, we'll do him up. And she's on. Okay. So now let's have a look at our bolt holes for the shocks. On the front, we'll grab our smaller drill. The 4 bolts that hold the shocks on the bottom of the arms, they're a 3x16 button head. That's what we use. we'll put it on the outside. There we go. Okay, front shocks are on. Now the rear shocks, there's 4 holes on the back of the arm. What I like to do is put them on the second from the inside. Seems to give them good traction and so forth for these. So we run them on the second from the inside. That's pretty much a factory spot, but on the RPM arms, that's where we run them. So when you run them on there, if you have a look, same thing again, the ball, it's got a large flange that side, and it's got a small flange on that side. So you want the large flange facing the outside. That way the shock can't pop past the ball. Okay. Okay. Now we'll just go around and we'll just check it. Doesn't need a lot of force on it. That's good. And we'll go to the front. Give that a little check there. A little bit tighter. There we go. And there we go. So now our shocks are on the slash. All the shocks are on, working. They're feeling really nice. Okay, so our next job is the rear body mount. So this one runs the weirdest little size. So these bolts here, they're 2.5 mil. They're only teeny little bolts. That is them there. So that's the weirdest size on the car, 2.5. And if you look on the back here of the shock tower, you have 2 holes and you have a couple of locations on there. We put it all the way down. So that means that it'll be all the way down. You could raise it up one, but all the way down for the body. And they're done. Rightio, so now the body will actually go on. The car's obviously not finished yet. So this is the new clipless body style from Traxxas. You can see the clipless mounts. Great idea. So that should just literally pop straight on. Let's give that a test. Okay, she's straight on the vehicle. And that's how they mount. So our next job will be putting the bumpers on. So we'll get the bumpers ready. Rightio, time for the bumpers. So the front bumper is the Traxxas 5835. The Traxxas bumper is the best one you can get. I've tried other bumpers. Tried the RPM one, but I do prefer the Traxxas front bumper. We'll pop that off. Open it out of the bag. Now, to assemble the front bumper, it's very straightforward. It's just 2 bolts that go into there. They're button heads. They are a 4x12 button head. Obviously, we're using the stainless bolts. Get our drill. They just pop through like so. And the other side. Just give them a nip up. Pretty much tight. So that's the bumper assembled. You can see the nice little bolts in there. Stainless. And she's ready to go on the car. Now, rear bumper, I use the RPM 81002. I found that the best rear bumper. You can also get an option little wheelie bar mount which tucks in on these if you do want to run a wheelie bar, if you're running a lot of power for them. Now, I don't use any of the standard bolts. Obviously, I go for the stainless. You'll need to cut these out of their little mould. Rightio. Now, there's a left and a right on these if you have a close look at them. So they are marked. So that one there's a right. And that one there's a left, okay? So you see there, it's got the L on it and the right on it. And this is also orientated to go up. So the RPM logo will go up. So that means the left-hand side will be there like so. These are a 3x16 button head. Once again, 3x16 are the bolts. So there's 4 of them that hold them on there. So we'll put those in there. Good idea, just get them all started. And the last bolt. The stainless gives it a really nice look too. And you're not going to have that corrosion from black oxide bolts. So standard bolts are black oxide. And as soon as you get water on them, they'll get stains and rust appears. And if you've got an RC car, it's worth the investment to put the stainless bolt kits in them. So once again, we'll go around. We just always give it a quick check. Make sure everything's snipped up all right. You don't want to over tighten the plastic and you don't want to under tighten it. So there we go. So the bumper's on. So now we'll attach the rear bumper. So this has got the Magnum gearbox, as we've seen earlier. This will bolt straight onto that mount. So these are also 3x16. Line it up there. I'll get these two started up here. Now, a bit of a trick here with the gearbox cover on the Magnum. I'm just going to leave those bolts in there loose because you will need to undo that bolt to get the cover on. That's just the way it is with the Magnum gearbox when you're putting them on there, because you can't get to that bolt there. See that bolt there? We cannot get to that. So I'll just stick them in loose for now, because I know I'll be pulling it off. So they're just going to go in there like so, knowing that I'll be pulling them off. You've only got to move them, literally pull the bumper bar about 10 mil and it'll go in. But if you've got them in tight, you won't get the cover on. If it's a standard gearbox and not the Magnum, you don't have to worry about that because it clears it, depending on the rear mount you use. Usually I use the RPM rear bumper mount if it's not the Magnum gearbox. So once again, we'll check they're tight. There we go. So that's just left loose until the motor and gearbox cover goes back on. But that moves plenty. So now the front one will go on. Front gearbox is pretty straightforward. Okay. So on the front one, we're going to use 4x12 countersunk. Okay. So 4x12 flatheads. So there's 4 of those that hold it on. There's one 4x12 up top. And there's 2 3x12s. 2 3x12s. So let's get the front bumper on. As soon as the front bumper goes on, we've pretty much got a car. Line that one up. Okay, so they're all in there. Same thing again. We'll go and check them all. We're good. We're good. We're good. And we're good. So we'll flip it over. So now if you look on top here, it's a 4x12 and the 3x12s go here and here. Okay, that one's in. We'll give them a little nip up. It's a very solid bumper piece, this. There is other bumpers on the market for the slashes, but as I said, the genuine one is definitely the one to use. If you have a close look at the bumper, it's got that huge crumple zone in there. So these things can take basically crazy amounts of impact and they just bounce back for more because of the way they're designed. So we're on. We've got the front bumper. We've got the rear bumper. Now our next job will be to fit the motor and the speed controller, get the gear mesh set up, and then put the radio in. So let's go to the motor and the speed controller. That's next. Rightio, so let's mount our speed controller. That's the Hobby Wing 120 we're using in this case. Now this is a mounting plate, very important. You don't want to double side tape these into the vehicles. They'll just fall out when they're getting treated bad. So carbon fibre plate, bolt size is a teeny little 3x6. So it's a 3x6, it's got a 2mm head, 2mm Allen key drive, sorry. So we'll get that started. It's important you only do them up one at a time slowly. So that one's started. I'll get the next bolt and we'll start it before we do the final tightening up. So that's getting near tight. Okay, that's found its way home. Okay, and then the last thing I'll do, as I always do, we'll grab our Allen key. We'll just give it a little nip up. Okay, that's tight. That's tight. Now that's not going to fall out of the car in any circumstances. Many RC cars, they just double side tape speed controllers in and the things fly out of the car. You don't want that happening. Now that's going to sit into right here, like so. So what we're going to do now is, this is your on off switch for your Hobby Wing. All these Hobby Wing systems will have that. So you want to get yourself some acetone once again. Give it a clean. Can't stress cleaning stuff enough with acetone on RC cars and plastics. They don't stick well without it. So just give it a nice clean. it's going to mount down there in the chassis. We'll see that in a minute. So a bit of double-sided tape. Use 3M of very good quality. So we'll just basically put our double-sided tape on, wire up. That's stuck on there good. Always give it a really hard press down. While it's on there, I usually trim it. That way you'll get it nice and close. Okay. So that's on there good now. Always give it a bit of a press down. That makes sure it's stuck on there really, really well. Now in this case, in the slash, what I do is I get those two wires. In this LCG chassis, there's a channel here. You'll see that there. And the bolts that go in here are the 3x8. This system, obviously, you can bolt a Valenian directly in, but you can too with this mounting plate. So that basically just goes through. And we'll drop it down in there. Now the two bolts that we're going to use here are a 3x8 button head. I put a flat washer underneath them. We'll get that started. And same on the other side. That one's a bit to line up. Same thing again. We'll grab our Allen key. Nice and tight, but not overly tight. Remember, plastic's got its own feel. Okay. The wires are directly in that channel. So if you can see there now, it's mounted in the chassis. Nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. It's on a carbon fibre 4mm plate. Now the next thing is the switch, which is right there. Pull the tape off, and we'll stick him down in the chassis there. Okay, you can see that there. So there's our on-off switch. It's all nice and clean. Double-sided tapes down. Now this is our main wire that's going to channel 2 in the receiver. That wire there. So you can see there's a channel. So that'll go through there. Through to the other side. Give them a twist. I'll just pull that battery cover out there. Now the idea of this wire here is to get it in a nice position. Like so, and then you put a bit of clear tape over it. That's how they come factory from Traxxas. I generally put the battery in. The battery's already at storage charge, so it sits in the car until we sell it. Rightio, so we'll do that next. Rightio, so once again, I'll just give it a clean where that wire runs through with acetone. A little bit of clear tape. Clear tape just runs in the channel, just holds the wire down. The battery holds it down irrespective. Stick them down like so. So now the wire's covered over with some clear tape. It's sitting below the battery height, so it'll never have a problem. Then I'll put the battery in. In this case, it's running the 5200 7.4 volt LiPo. Plenty of power for a slash two-wheel drive. So just drop that in there. The foam's in there, as I said earlier, to hold the battery from flying around. So now it's in there properly. And then we'll put a battery holder in. The battery holder on the 2S goes with the prongs down. So there we go. So we now have our speed controller mounted. We have our wire for channel 2, which will go to the receiver box. And the battery's in. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the motor in the vehicle. Rightio, so we're now going to mount our 4000 kV Hobbywing motor. Remember, this one has the 5mm shaft, so you must run the 5mm pinion. We're running a 25 tooth. With an 86 spur. Proven it will never overheat, it will have tons of speed. This car should radar somewhere around mid 40 miles an hour on 2S battery, which is absolutely flying, just under sort of 70, 75 Ks. Rightio, so in we go. Now with the engine mount bolts, this one does run the Magnum gearbox, so you'll need the Magnum gearbox bolts. They come in the box when you purchase them. They have a nice little flat washer and they'll go on the aluminium mounting plate. If you're running the standard Traxxas gearbox, which we do in a lot of our builds, this one here, you would definitely need these bolts here. So these are the original bolts for the VXL system. Okay, they're a nice flat Allen key, and that's definitely the bolt you want. You don't want a small bolt that's going to rip into the plastic. You want these. Part number on them is Traxxas 3931. You must run those on the plastic gearbox, okay? Rightio, so we'll set the motor in there. Motor's going to pop in through there. You need a 2.5mm Allen key for this job. So 2.5. We got that one started. Okay, they're both started now. So what I like to do is just do them up a little bit tight. Just seat everything in. Then we'll just back it off a bit, just a smidge. Now I can still move the motor back and forth, just a little bit looser. Okay, so the motor moves back and forth. And we'll put our pinion gear on. Now that takes a little bit of time, and I'll show you how that works when it's finally set. Our gear mesh is done. Now, one of the things with gear mesh that's really important is I usually check it off this bolt, and this bolt, and you take an average, right? So I'll check it there. There's a little bit of clearance. You can actually hear that and see it. So we'll bring it around to the next one. Bit of clearance there. There's a bit of clearance there. And you even check it here. Bit of clearance, bit of clearance, bit of clearance. These are 48 pitch. They're a finer pitch. You get 32 pitch coarser and mod 1 coarser again. So it's super important that you have clearance. If it's too tight, you will burn the gear. And if it's too loose, you'll strip the gear easy. I just base it, I've set thousands of these and I get very few back. Generally, say you had a car like a Rustler or something where they don't have the big bumper and they get hit, they can hit the motor and move the mesh quite easily. You also want to make sure that you're in line with the gears that way, okay? You can do that by just moving the pinion across, but you want to be in line with that gear and that gear to make sure they're right, okay? So it's a bit of an art. You want to make sure the bolts are tight. You can get Traxxas have plates where you put in there where they set like an 86 and 90, 83 and stuff. I prefer to do it the old way by hand. And as long as that's right, you're right. Make sure these bolts are super snug. Make sure you put blue thread lock on the pinion. Always use blue thread lock. And make sure it's super tight, okay? It's an art, and the only way you learn is doing more and more of it. But that's how we set the mesh on the pinion. Now, just to give you another idea on pinion mesh, imagine this finger here is your pinion gear, and this is your spur gear. So the gear will come in like so. If your gear is in here too tight, you will hear a squealing sound, guaranteed with RC mesh. Wouldn't matter what car you got. If you're in there too much, it's too tight. And also remember that all gears aren't perfect. So when you turn a gear, sometimes, unless you had a dial indicator on here, you can find up to 20 thou, which is 0.5 mil movement with gears. They can move, basically they're wonky. They go like this, they can go like this a bit. And a lot of people will check their mesh in one spot. You need to check it in multiple spots. You need to check it here, 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 here. Wherever the tightest spot is, that's where you want to set your mesh, okay? You can't just check it in one spot. A piece of paper is not always perfect because you could remove the paper, come over here and the gear will move and it'll go too tight. So mesh is probably the most understated problem I see with every RC car and every customer comes through. Strip gears or running too noisy or burnt out. So it's something that you need to take time on. So just to give you an idea, too tight, way too loose. If you're out here, way too loose. You want to be around there, 85% of the way into the gear. That way the gears have got good contact. So 85% is perfect, right? 90% you could get by as long as the gear's not running out, but you want to be in there. Not out here, not in there, about there. Keep that in mind with every RC car with gear mesh and you'll have minimal with no problems. We'll now put the cover on. So this is the Magnum cover. Earlier on I said that these two bolts here don't get done up all the way. There's a reason for that. I'll show you why. So I'll undo them. If you look there's a bolt holding behind there. That's for the cover. You won't get to it with the bumper on. So you just basically set that aside. And now you'll get it in there. So we'll undo that. Pull the cover. Rightio. So we will put that on there now. There we go, she's home. So that bolt will go in. And we'll put this one back in. Okay, just lined up now. So the cover's on there tight. And then we'll put the 16s back on the bumper. Bumper's all tight, cover's on. And next thing that we're going to do is we're going to plug our motor in. Now the motor is pretty straightforward. It's just A, B and C. If you look on the back of the speed controller, you will see it's marked A, B and C. And the motor is also marked A, B, C. So with the slash, I usually go straight through that hole there, if you see in the back of the shock tower. And that is in. Rightio, so our wires are hooked up. Obviously you can see they're a little bit too long. Now you could shorten them all and get them all perfect, but you never know what will happen down the track. The motor could be using something else, so you don't want to shorten the wires. So literally just get 2 zip ties, heavy duty ones, and we'll just tuck them. So basically tuck them like so, fold them around, go through there. There we go. So we'll now get some side cutters. Usually what I do is just cut them nice and close, don't want them sharp. Just fine. I'll just tuck those around the other way, so no sharp bits for fingers. Yeah, and that is all you need to do. They're not going anywhere. There's plenty of slack there, so it's all good. Now our next part will be installing the Traxxas receiver box onto the plate. So we're going to mount the receiver box next and put the radio gear in. We're going to put the wheels on and we're going to get the thing running. Rightio, so we're now going to mount the receiver. So this is the Futaba 3PV receiver, Traxxas receiver box, and it's all going to go together. So pretty straightforward. So this is the lead from the speed controller that's going to go into channel 2. Just a little thing, when you open these up, they have a block of foam. You just stick them in, they're double-sided tape, and they just stick in there and there. Need to make sure they're in. So that just feeds through there. You want to do this first, so that's channel 2. Channel 1 is obviously coming from the servo. Make sure that's tucked in there. And that'll feed through there. The right way, there we go, that's neat. So that's where they tuck through. So if you have a look at that, they're in the receiver box. And next step there is to put the receiver in. So you want to make sure that the aerials run through as well. So I'll run the aerial through, just a little bit bend on him, or hook him through there. And you want to make sure that it comes through the aerial receiver in the receiver box, just like so. You want to make sure that's in. If you bolt it in, you'll be pulling it back out if you don't do that. Next step is usually I run the receiver around to shorten the aerial up a bit like so. These have great reception and that will not affect anything. Always a fiddly process wise, get him in the right spot. Okay, so we'll pull our double-sided tape off. I've already cleaned that with some acetone. So that's got double-sided tape on the back of it already. And we'll stick him down like so. Give it a press. Okay, now when it comes to wiring these up, if you have a look here, channel 1 is your steering, channel 2 is your speed controller, channel 3 is an auxiliary, and so is channel 4. So we only need channel 1 and channel 2. So we'll be plugging channel 1 in. The brown wire is the negative, and that'll face that way. Press him down, you'll find its way home. And same with your ESC channel 2. You can have a look at that. So if you look there, once again, channel 2, speed controller, channel 1 is the servo, okay? So that's in there now. So these ones here, they're just a little 3x6, okay, button head. They just drop into the receiver box. Okay, so they're in. Next thing we want to do is we want to make sure those wires are sort of neat into the receiver box. There's some little channels there that they're running. Always a little bit fiddly. sometimes you just got to pull the wires aside and drop them down in the right spot. Okay, that's the order that I'd want them in. If you have a look at that, you can see they're in the grooves. So if we look closely, see they're all tracking down into the grooves. That'll be fine. Now they have an O-ring. This is to seal up the receiver box. O-ring's in. Now the next two bolts are a 3x8. If you look at the receiver box, see there's a little notch on this side. Right there, you can see it. There's the notch. That's got to face that away. So we'll line that up. A little bit of pressure on there just to make sure the O-ring doesn't run away. Okay. Now last thing we put in. Now they come with grease when you buy the receiver box. The grease is actually to stop the water coming through, which is a great idea if you're near water. So you spread a little bit of grease on there. The grease actually acts as a deterrent to stop the water coming through. So a coating of that on there. And this one here uses a 2.5 by 12. Clean up. That's all sealed up now. We've got our silicone grease for waterproofing. Receiver box is all buttoned up. So it's all looking good. The last thing we need here now is our aerial. Now with the aerial, a couple of ways. What I use a bit of Gearbox silicone tubing. I'll put that down there. I'll run that over the aerial. And what I'll do, this takes a little bit of mucking around. I'll get it just started. Okay, so tube's on there now. Needs quite a bit of a push. So there we go. So now I use the silicone tube, so it's got a nice flexible mount on the aerial. It can get hit and it doesn't crack it. So that's the reason for the silicone tube. It's not going anywhere. It's just nice and snug. And that's it there. So our next step is we'll run the battery power under here. And we can actually plug the power in now because we're going to calibrate this in one moment. So our next step is wheel hexes, wheels on, set the radio up, and we'll calibrate it. And the car's almost complete. Rightio, so we're going to put our wheels on now. Before we put the wheels on the rear, we're using the Traxxas 1654 aluminium hexes. Normally they're plastic. On our case, we use the billet aluminium ones. So when they go on the rear, very straightforward. We use one of the 1954 shims. That just pops on there. So the little shim goes on like so. Then you just need to line up the pin. Pin goes straight on. Then the hex is going to go on. We just drop that on there. Ropax wheels. These are a medium hard. Super good wearing tyre for a slash. For all purpose and mucking around. And on the rear, we're going to put a flanged 4mm hex nut, okay? The flange is serrated, so I'll just show you that again. The serrations in the nut stop it coming loose. And on she goes. Now on the front, exactly the same thing. When we built the vehicle, we put one of those shims underneath the front axle. The reason we run one, we run the same wheel on the front. You can get, Traxxas have a front and a rear wheel. You can run rears all around. We have no problem with that. We've been doing that for years. There's only about 1mm difference in the offset and you're never going to notice it. So rear wheels will go all the way around the slash. You can obviously run the front ones that they come with, but there's no problem with doing it that way. So with the secret with the front one, I'll just show you what you've got to check here. When you put the front wheel on, usually what I like to do is tighten it all the way up. Now we'll spin it. It's too tight because it's on a bearing. We'll just back it off a little bit more, and see it's spinning free. Just a teeny bit more now. Now that's spinning free. Rightio, so with our wheel nuts on the rear, I used a hex flanged 4mm. So it's got the serrated flange on there, they don't come loose. On the front, I like to use, from experience, these smooth 4mm nylocks. You can use the Traxxas ones, no problem. They're just the ones I like to use. So once again, on the front, you do not tighten them up too much. The reason the nylocks done up is you just back it off until the wheel spins free, and you want to spin free for a good 10-15 seconds, and that's the ones that we use. So let's get the rest of the wheels on. Rightio, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the rear camber. I usually like to give these 1 degree negative, so 1 degree camber, and that's what the camber links are for right there. So that's our little camber link, and this is a camber link adjusting tool. This is a Techno one, probably one of the best quality ones you'll get, and it's just a matter of winding it out until you get your camber set right. So I can't hold the phone and do that, so I'll do it and show you. So right now it's not right. We'll get a lot closer. Rightio, so we've adjusted the camber and we've got about 1 degree, and same on the other side. That's all it needs. The front's pretty much the same, 1 to 1.5 negative, sometimes 2. It does not matter on a Traxxas / Basher. You know, you're not racing the thing. It's just a car that you're gonna have a good time with. If you're racing, you'll look for all out the cambers and stuff like that. But this is not a race car, it's an all-purpose car. If you took it to the racetrack, you might spend more time on it. But as long as you're around that 1.5, you will have no problem at all. I've seen slashes come 5 degree camber still having a good time, but I don't recommend that, but that's what we're looking at. Right, let's program it up and get it running, and the steering link. Rightio, so now we're going to set up the Vitava 3PV radio. Very easy. We'll just turn him on the power button. Look on the screen. There's that. So the first thing we're going to do is name the model. So we'll just go down here. So I press the increase button twice. Right, now then you have the increase here, so that's when you go through. We'll just call it a slash, so we'll just call it 5, looks like an S, so that'll do. You move the steering wheel 1. Keep going. L, so now I'll move the steering wheel that direction, which will bring it onto the 3rd line. Looking for an A. There we go, we'll go 1 more. Look for a 5 again, that'll do it. Slash. So now we're locked in, so we'll turn it off. We'll turn it back on. Now it'll be called slash, which it is. Right, so the next adjustment we want to get to is the top right here, which says EPA. So you press the right button, you're going to go across here. It's coming across the menu now. Okay, we're in EPA. So that's your right steering, that's your left steering. Okay, that's your endpoint. We'll check that on the vehicle. That's how mechanically you can set up how much steering it's got. We'll go once more to channel 2. Now you want to bring this to maximum. So we'll go to 120 forward power, which is in that position with the trigger, obviously. If I move it to the other position, B, that's your brake position. See, it goes to B. Then we'll bring that to maximum too, because we need to calibrate the Hobbywing Speedy. So you need to make sure you're on that when you calibrate the speed control. I'm going to go through that now. So I'll turn it off, I'll turn it back on. The last thing you need to check is that the throttle trim, which is this little knob here, is on 0. So we'll click that and it's on 0. So now we can calibrate the speed controller. You need to calibrate it so that you know it's got full EPA and it's got full brakes with a maximum endpoint adjustment, okay? Rightio, so we're going to go through calibrating the speed controller now. So on channel 2, we want the brakes at 120 maximum, and we want the forward at 120. So both of them at maximum. Now to calibrate it, we simply just hold the button down here on the Hobbywing speed controller. That's the little button. You will see it when you look at it. Turn it on. Now it's bipping. That means it's in calibration. So with the throttle at neutral, which means right in the middle of its travel, press it once. Now we're going to go to full throttle. 2 beeps. We'll go to full brakes. Press it again. She is calibrated now, so we can test it. It'll have... Now that's going to be crazy fast, so we'll just turn it off a sec. So we'll turn it back down to child power. Usually when I send these out the door, because most of them are for children, unless dads get hold of them, we'll turn it right down. That's by holding the trigger on the full foot forward position. I'm on the decrease button on the radio. Usually 30% scooting along. You can go much lower if the child's a beginner. Maybe 25% if you're on an acreage property or something like that. to get them used to it, and then you can turn it up as you want. You can go in smaller increments, 5%, whatever you want. 120's max, so that's at 25 now. So you can see it's slowed right down now, it has. Now the brakes, I like to keep them at 100. Rightio. So here's our little steering link. So this is the link that we use on the Slash. So it basically just hooks up onto here with a 3x12, and then we're going to use a 3x8, which is going to hold it onto the servo, which is right there. So we'll put that on now. Now let's go back one. We're on channel 1 steering. So I'm going to hook up the steering link now. A little bit hard to see. Okay, so the steering link I've already got on. So with the steering link, you want to make sure your wheels are straight. So if we look at it that way, the wheels are straight in straight position. So if I pull the link's off now, I'll put it back on, and I'll make sure that it's in the straight position and the trim's zeroed out. The trim doesn't have to be at 0, it's just wherever it tracks straight in the end if you've got to do a fine adjustment. Now the bolt for the steering link to hold it on is a 3x8 button head. I've already got a little bit of blue Loctite on there. So let's go ahead and put that on there. And we'll do that up. And snug it up. She's on there. Now the next thing we're going to set is the EPA on channel 1. So let's go back one, channel 1. That's the first one you come to on EPA, okay? Now how the EPA works, see it's on right at 100%. So we can take the steering out of it. So, whoop, we'll go there. I'm going to decrease it. Now see the steering will start coming back by itself. So the steering's mechanically coming back. Now it's only got a little bit of steering that way, but it's got 100% that way. So we'll bring it up. Sorry, we'll go to the right turn. We'll bring it up. I know these cars go to 105%. So we'll just bring that up. Now once you get past there, you start straining the servo. So if we keep going, you can hear the servo loading up. 105 is where it stops, so that's mechanically out of steering. Like the car mechanically, if you unhook the link, does not have any more steering. And that's why it's important to set it, not just on this car, any RC car. Mechanically, they can only go as far as mechanically they can, and that's where the EPA on a proper radio comes in super handy. We'll go the other side, just bring it up to 105, and that'll do it. Plenty of steering for a Slash. There we go, so that's done. So we've set the endpoints on the speed controller, we've set the endpoints on that, we've turned the power down. The Slash is pretty much done now. Now that car is complete. That is a complete Traxxas Slash. She is done. Now that would be one of thousands of these that I built. This is probably the best, newest version because it has the clipless body mounts. It's got the Magnum gearbox. It's got the metal geared servo. It's got the LCG chassis. It's got the big bore shocks, RPM rear shock tower, RPM front tower, RPM front arms, carbon front brace, RPM rear arms. It's got all the goodies in there. And this car will get years of service. And the good thing about Traxxas is the parts remain the same all the time. So a great car. So if you're looking to get your kids into the best first RC car, this is the best one you're ever going to get them. So we'll whack the body on there. We'll turn him off. We'll put the body on. Remember, this is the new clipless style. And she's on. Our Slash is complete. Let's have a look at him. So there you go, guys. That's how I build a Traxxas Slash. This car will give years of service. You can beat it hard, treat it bad, and the kids, if your young fella's young, he'll have it for years and years to come. It's not the only RC car you can get. There's thousands of RC cars in the market, but this is the best-selling, most durable car you'll ever find. The parts remain the same. It's a great platform. They look great. They're tough. They're durable, and that's why I recommend the Traxxas Slash two-wheel drive. If you want something with the least amount of effort to work on, easy to get parts, this is the car for you. For the guys wondering how long the Slashes last, this is our shop demo car. This was probably the first Slash ever received in Australia. It's been modified many times. This car is 17 years old. So it's 17 years old. Every part of it's been broken off it, severed off it many times. It was upgraded to an LCG years ago, but it's still going. We still put the parts in it. It's had a very hard time. It's probably had 500 sets of tyres on it. It's probably had 50 plus bodies on it, but that just proves how durable they are. Every time it's been broken, we just fix it and keep going, because the parts are always available for a Slash two-wheel drive. So just a comparison here, guys. Here's as stock as we get Slash. A brush motor, brush speed controller, nickel metal battery, plastic geared servo, standard shocks, completely stock. So wherever you buy this in the world, or so if you're buying in Australia, you might find it anywhere between $500 and $650, depending on what the market price is at the time. Usually they're around the $550 mark wherever you go. So that's what you usually pay for them. Then you can get a mid-range one. Here's one of our mid-range ones. So this one here, it's got the 4000 kV motor, 120 amp speed controller. It's got a metal geared servo. It's got a lithium battery. It's all standard apart from that, but it does come with a Futaba 3PV radio, so you can turn all the power down. So that's one of the most popular upgrades when people go brushless, is a good quality handset. That one's a mid-range. And then you go to our top of the range, well, one we just built, metal geared servo, Traxxas big bore shocks, 120 amp speed controller, Magnum gearbox, LCG chassis, RPM arms all around, ST&C pin kit, full stainless fit out. It's got all the goodies, everything's done to it, and it comes with a free PV radio. So initially, yes, the cars are cheap, but like anything, any RC car you can buy, you can put better equipment in it. And that's all we've done here. So if people say, oh, I don't want to spend too much money, right there, that's your cheapest one, but you will spend money on it. And then you'll go to something like that, you'll put it brushless, you'll upgrade it, and you want a better radio, and then you can get one of these. These aren't cheap. If you're interested in one, just drop into the shop. They're not a cheap car, but they're done properly, and they're all built ready to go. So whatever your budget is, we do it all here at RC Hobbies Gold Coast, from standard to mid to top of the range. It's all in stock. So drop on down and see us, or build your own. Come and get the parts, watch the build video, and learn it all. Thanks for watching, guys.